Hi, so in chapter 7, we learned about all of the learning theories, and my poster is going to be about observational learning, although I did include in the intro all three of them just to kind of get a background on them. So there are three types of learning theories: classical conditioning, operant conditioning, or observational learning. Observational learning is the process of learning to respond in a particular way by watching others. Classical conditioning in simple terms is when two stimuli are linked together to produce a new learned response in a person or animal. Operant conditioning is a method of learning that occurs through reward and punishments for behavior. So let me go to my notes that I wrote down. So like I said, observational learning is the process of learning to respond in a particular way by watching others, who are called models. Observational learning is also called, I'm going to attempt this word, vicarious conditioning, because it involves learning by watching others acquire responses through classical or operant conditioning. Observational learning describes the process of learning through watching others, retaining the information, and then later replicating the behaviors that were observed. So a really big thing is not only are you watching the model, but later on you have to remember that, and then that's when you have to apply that. I do have an example in here somewhere. So think of how a child watches his parents wave at one another and imitate these actions himself. A tremendous amount of learning happens through this process of watching and imitating others. In psychology, this is known as observational learning. So, for example, if you're at recess at the playground and a group is playing hide and seek, and you're sitting there and you don't know how to play, and you're watching, and then you end up catching on and learning how to play. Obviously, it's not that hard. And so yeah, that's just another example I kind of thought of along with the other one. So while this can take place at any point in life, it tends to be the most common during childhood, as children learn from the authority figures and peers in their lives. So like I said, it's most common when it's a child learning from his parents or guardian or role model. An observer's behavior can be affected by the positive or negative consequences, and this is when the vicarious reinforcement or punishment comes into play. I already gave the example. It also plays an important role in the socialization process, as children learn how to behave and respond to others by observing how their parents and other caregivers interact with each other and other people. So like I said, that's when your parents, a child, and then your parents, that's when that comes into play. I'm not sure if I already... Yes, I did read that. Although it is commonly believed that the observer will copy the model, American psychologist Albert Bandura stressed that individuals may simply learn from the behavior rather than imitate it. So the observer will react to the way the model is treated and mimic the model's behavior. So when the model's behavior is rewarded, the observer is more likely to reproduce the rewarded behavior. And then when the model is punished, an example of vicarious punishment, the observer is less likely to reproduce the same behavior. Observers must not only recognize, this is kind of like what I said in the beginning, observers must not only recognize the observed behavior, but also remember it at some point in the later time. This process depends on the observer's ability to code or structure the information. So it is easily remembered form, or to mentally or physically rehearse the model's actions. So those are all of the notes that I have. And I think that pretty much covered everything I have on my poster. So that is the end.